For now, though, we want to turn our attention to a story that you might have seen reported in the Daily Mail, that Manchester United have been linked with a big summer move for Republic of Ireland international Denise O'Sullivan. To discuss this and a couple of other stories, because we've got the FA Cup final this weekend and a pretty dramatic conclusion to the WSL, I'm delighted to welcome KATHRYN BATTE to the show. KATHRYN, good evening.
Nice to see you.
Talk to us about this then. Denise O'Sullivan, Manchester United. What's potentially happening here?
Yeah, so Denise has been attracting interest from a few clubs in the last few months. There's a little bit of interest around the January transfer window. She's out of contract with North Carolina Courage at the end of their season, which is in November. I think they'd like to keep her, but I think she's quite open to a move to the WSL. And yeah, there was a few clubs kind of in and around and interested back in December and January, but Manchester United seem to be the ones kind of at the forefront of that. They could get her on a free transfer if they waited until January when the window reopens, but I think they're going to try and go for her in the summer and obviously pay a fee for that.
What sort of fee would we be talking for a player of Denise's quality? Granted, she's only got 6 months left on the deal.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be a huge fee. It would be, I imagine, North Carolina could play hardball with it, and they might want to keep it for the rest of the season and say, you can do the move then. But if Man United really want to, they might have to maybe play a bit more than you normally would for a player that's going to be out of contract in 6 months' time. But I think you'd be looking at a reasonable fee. I mean, we see kind of, players around the £100,000 mark seems to be a benchmark now for clubs, and rarely kind of see, big name players go for less. So I would imagine it would kind of be around that mark or potentially a little bit more, depending on how much North Carolina want to keep her.
Is there a sense that Manchester United are really going to start spending big on this team that they're assembling at the moment? Obviously, it's a big weekend for them in terms of their looking for their first ever FA Cup triumph. As far as I'm aware, it does feel that things are building on the women's side of things at Manchester United. Is that going to come with expenditure and top quality talent, such as a Denise O'Sullivan type player?
I don't know if we'll see them go wild in terms of putting record bids in for players. They did spend last summer. They signed Jace from Barcelona, which was a record deal for them. I think maybe they're looking at types of players like Denise who might be coming towards the end of their contracts, but are still kind of are going to bring quality to the team. So I think we'll kind of probably see similar to what we saw last summer, paying a fee for maybe a few players, but also trying to be a little bit smart and look at the players they might be able to get for free or some of the cheaper options, because I'm not 100% convinced that Man United are going to kind of go all out and start throwing money around at different teams and players. They definitely want success, and I think maybe they probably should be paying a little bit more for players and kind of not going mad, but maybe investing a little bit more. So I think it'll be, be interesting to see. Obviously, a lot of it depends as well on whether Mark Skinner's still the manager going into next season.
She's had a remarkable time with the Courage. She's won 2 NWSL championships, a couple of Challenge Cups, 3 NWSL Shields. Why is it now that she'll want to leave? Is it because of her international career? Is it because of being closer to home? Is it because she actually believes that the football she'll be playing will be of a higher standard in the WSL at this point, I wonder?
I think it's probably a few things. I mean, players that go abroad, a lot of the time they go. Sometimes they go for the football, sometimes they go for the experience, sometimes they go for the lifestyle. And I think, as you mentioned, Denise has had a good run over there in America, and she might just be ready to kind of come a bit closer to home, closer to where her family is. The WSL is a big league. I don't, people might have opinions on whether the league in America is bigger or whether the WSL is bigger. But, you'd be coming over to, as I say, a league that gets a lot of spotlight on it. She's also a Man United fan. She grew up as a Manchester United fan, so that might play a role in it a little bit as well, if they are the team and she had a choice of options, and whether one of those options is to stay or to come over to the WSL. And as you say, she's got Republic of Ireland teammates in the WSL as well. It might be a little bit easier for her international career to play over in England than it is in America. But I think there's a few different reasons. But yeah, I do wonder whether that lifelong Man United fan might kind of play into it a little bit as well.
Yeah, a couple of famous Cork faces have appeared for Manchester United in the past, so I'm sure she'll be keen to add her name to that. You say people have their opinions about whether the NWSL is bigger than the WSL. What's your opinion on that?
I'm not really sure. I think I'll be a bit biased because obviously I watch the WSL every week, and I don't get to watch as much of the NWSL because the time difference. So I think I would obviously say England, but I mean I think I'm a bit biased. I'm sure there's plenty of Americans that would have a go at me for saying that.
It does feel that the NWSL is a bit more established. I think we can say that than the WSL. So can we also conclude that if you want to point to which of the two is growing at a faster rate, that it's the one in England?
Yeah, maybe. I think it's interesting because you look at the TV deal that they've got over in America, and it was record breaking. It's bigger than the one we've got in England.
Right.
So they are ahead in that sense, and probably on a commercial level. And we've seen quite a few American teams pay big fees, break the world record in recent months. So we probably need to see WSL clubs spending a little bit more as well to try and rival America in that sense. So if I'm thinking logically, I think maybe I'm talking myself out of the last answer and I'm saying that NWSL is bigger, but yeah, I think the WSL, as you say, I think that's growing at a quick rate, and both of them are kind of equally very good leagues to play in.
How would Denise O'Sullivan's game be suited to the WSL?
I mean, she's an experienced player. There is actually quite a lot of competition in that Man United squad in the midfield area, so she'll be coming in and kind of challenging and trying to break that up. She's a great passer of the ball. She's strong. She's kind of got everything you want from a defensive midfielder. So, and she's played in the WSL before. She's obviously at Brighton for a short spell, so she knows what the league is like. She's had an experience of it, so she's not coming into a brand new league and having to learn what it's like. And obviously, she plays with, some of her international teammates are in the WSL as well. So, she'd come with experience and she'd come with, talent as well. I think it'd be a great move for. I think she would fit into any club in the WSL, to be fair.
Absolutely. Should just bring you up to speed on what's been happening at the Bernabeu. It's still scoreless, but there's been opportunities on both sides. And I must say, Rodrigo and Vinicius have been brilliant tonight. How one of them hasn't scored is absolutely astonishing. The most recent opportunity just for Vinicius finishing off, for Rodrigo finishing off a Vinicius cross, manages to get his leg in front of a Bayern defender and the ball just somehow dribbles wide. Neuer's made a couple of good saves. But to be fair, Bayern keep knocking at the door and you just get the sense that there's going to be one big counter-attack opportunity with them. Harry Kane feeding someone through for a big chance before this game is out. But as it stands, 55 minutes on the clock, still scoreless. KATHRYN, you talked there about the television rights deal that exists in the United States. I dare say that something that will be very healthy for the television rights in the UK is this conclusion that we're getting to the WSL.
Yeah, I mean, twists and turns, and there's probably still more to come. Obviously, Chelsea have got to beat Tottenham to put themselves top of the league going into the final day, which won't be an easy game. And if they do that, we're probably going to come down to goal difference if both Chelsea and City win their games on the last day. So, it's kind of flipped round. MFA's conceded the title a few weeks ago and said it's done, and now suddenly she's saying it's not over. So I think it's potentially one of the most exciting ends to a WSL season we've ever had.
She didn't just say that it's not over just yet. She was very, very impassioned after their win at the weekend, right?
She was, yeah. I probably can't repeat specifically what she said, but it was obviously her last home game as Chelsea manager, and I think maybe the fact that she thought the chances were gone, and then they've come back into it. It maybe felt more, the idea of her leaving Chelsea and not winning a trophy in her final season probably doesn't sit right with her and probably a lot of other people. So if they were to go and win the title at Old Trafford on the last day, I think, she'd be over the moon, and it'd probably be a fitting exit. Obviously, Gareth Taylor at Man City won't see it like that, but they've got to do their job now and hope that Chelsea slip up. It's
not effing over, is the quote from Emma Hayes and her rallying cry at the weekend. Is there a sign that Manchester City are getting a little bit nervous at this point?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, interestingly, each time teams have had fate in their own hands, they've kind of messed up. And City just needed to win their last two games. In fact, they only needed 4 points from their last two games. If they'd beaten Arsenal, that would pretty much have, you'd have backed them to at least get a draw against Aston Villa, although that won't be an easy game either. And they just seemed to, the pressure kind of seemed to get to them, and the 2 goals they conceded were right at the end. But whether, as I say, Chelsea still have to do their job, they still have to go and beat Tottenham. So it'd be interesting to see now whether the pressure gets to them or not.
Manchester City are going to be cheering for Manchester United this weekend, is how I read this. They want them to win the cup. They want them to be celebrating all week. And then, no, sorry, the other way around. What am I talking about? They were because Manchester United are playing Chelsea in the final day of the season. So, no, I was going to suggest some sort of irony on behalf of Manchester City fans there, but they probably want Man United to be on tip-top shape going into that final day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, they could be a bit hungover if they win the FA Cup, but I guess then if they lose the final, they might be a bit depressed. So sure. I'm not sure which way you'd want it to go, but definitely on that final day, they'll be cheering for United. And I think, regardless of what happens in the cup final, the fact it's at Old Trafford, you would expect those players to get up for that game and try and make it as difficult as possible for Chelsea. And I don't think there's much kind of love lost between those teams either. So I'd imagine that United will go all out, and it's just up to Chelsea and whether they can go there and do the job.
What has Chelsea been like ever since Emma Hayes announced her departure? It doesn't feel that they've veered anywhere close to the post-announcement situation that Liverpool found themselves in after Klopp said he was leaving.
Yeah, it's been a bit strange. I think in the months initially, I think they kind of dealt with it quite well. I think it's only been kind of after Christmas that it seems to have, as we've got to the business end of the season and every trophy seemed to mean more. I think they kind of spiralled a little bit after losing the Conti Cup final, because that was the first trophy they lost. Then the next game they lose the FA Cup. They go out in the semi-finals, and then part of it, I think, is down to injuries. Losing Sam Kerr has obviously not helped them an awful lot. They've had other players out injured. Then the narrow defeat in the Champions League. I kind of wasn't surprised to then see them lose to Liverpool, and almost, as we saw Emma Hayes concede the title on that day. But they've kind of rallied and picked themselves up, and now they have got a chance to give Hayes a trophy before she leaves. And I think for a little while that pressure kind of weighed on the players a little bit, but hopefully they've kind of freed themselves of that now, and they can just kind of go out there and play and obviously try and do the job.
Vinicius is amazing at football. He's just dribbled and danced around 3 or 4 Bayern Munich players here. But it turns out Manuel Neuer is also absolutely amazing at football. This is just turning into one of these unbelievably perfect, high-quality Champions League semi-finals where Real Madrid are in control, but Bayern are just so dangerous and so likely to catch them on the counter-attack. But Neuer has just pulled off an extraordinary save to stop Vinicius from the edge of the box. Went to a corner, nothing came of it. Overall, there's been 13 shots for Real Madrid, 4 for Bayern Munich. Real Madrid still on top here. 30 minutes to play will keep you up to speed. One last thing before we let you go, KATHRYN. The FA Cup final this weekend. Who's going to win it?
My head says United, my heart says Tottenham, just because of the job Robert Villaham's done. I think it'd be great if they won it, but I think maybe the experience of being in last year's final will help get Man United over the line. Very
good. It is a 2:30 kickoff this Sunday the 12th of May. Is Manchester United against Tottenham in the FA Women's Cup final. You've been listening to KATHRYN Batte of the Daily Mail. Thanks a million for taking the call, KATHRYN.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. 61 minutes